Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I take the next 20 minutes to answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault.
All right. Happy Friday. And I'm so excited that you're here, my friend. I'm going to take a quick drink and please introduce yourself to all of our guests.
Sure. I'm Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist with over 25 years of experience in healthcare and leadership. And now I provide healthcare consulting, professional coaching, mostly to people in healthcare. That's sort of my expertise area, but certainly I'm willing to work with anyone who's motivated and really wanting to improve things.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And we have some fantastic questions, so I'm really not going to waste any time. But before we dive into all of our listeners' questions, per the usual, question number one, what are you thankful for this week?
I am very thankful for the weather we have been having. So in northern Michigan, it could be a foot of snow this time of year. We've had sunshine, beautiful weather. So very thankful that the nice weather is extending for a change. That is wonderful.
I like it. What is something new that you learned this week?
So more of a reminder is the importance of awe or wonder. I came across an article that was published a few years ago with older adults, and they just told them to take walks and experience awe without any more instruction. And anyway, the importance of just noticing things, even everyday things. So for me, taking walks and just noticing the simple, basic things and really enjoying those versus taking them for granted.
I do that so much with the family as much as we can. And it's just very resetting to be able to spend time without really a purpose or agenda, just take it nice and leisurely and just sort of take in and observe everything around. That's fantastic.
Well, I've seen some of your photos. The background's a little different than northern Michigan, so there's a lot for you to look at.
Well, Michigan has some beauty, but Norway it's sort of second to none. I'm not going to lie. It's fantastic. Not much to complain about. Number 3, how do you hope to grow as you rest and reflect heading into the weekend?
This is always a challenging question when I've watched your other interviews. So my goal is to redefine what I view as productive. So normally I'm got to produce to the point where reading a book just for fun feels like it's not productive. And we all know, and I preach this, I need to practice it, that restoring, relaxing, reflecting, enjoying things is productive, just in a different way. So that is my goal. I'm going to read this book for fun and really enjoy it.
The first one from one of our listeners, from Micah, says, do you have any tried and true tangible practices that you use in the ordinary everyday to grow or build your perseverance muscle? What do you think?
I like this question because it really demonstrates that we need a foundation. If you are coming across challenges and then you think you're going to figure out what to do with it, it doesn't work so well. And for me, a big important piece of this is how we think. So I'm a firm believer in we are what we think, and that saying if you can or you can't, you're right. So reframing challenges as opportunities versus something to avoid and run away from, I think is really important. Also, again, reminding yourself, putting that thought out there of past successes and things that you've been through and build that muscle. The growth mindset, we talk about that a lot in coaching, where we're always learning. It's something that we can always be doing for ourselves. And the more that we learn and acknowledge and experience, the stronger our perseverance gets. Learning from mistakes, get inspired by others. For me too, a reminder pretty regularly of my why. Why am I working towards something that is tied to my values completely? And maybe a final sort of everyday thing you could try to do is increasing your comfort with uncertainty. That's a scary one, but it's a really important thing because there's so much that is not under our control. So learning how to be a little bit more comfortable with that helps.
I love that idea too, because to me, Uncertainty is everything that's in the future. You and I have no idea what's going to happen as we record this in our physical spaces where we are at. And I love that you mentioned the mindset because that is huge. Just our focus and our purpose and our values that we can help align towards that. That's beautiful. Very nice. Thank you. All right. So there are two questions that are very similar. So I'm going to read them to you and see if you choose to maybe layer these. There is a little bit of nuance to each of them, but I feel like they're sort of in the same vein. So from Bobby Sue, she asked, tell me a time when perseverance helped you and a time where it hurt you. How do you dial into the right amount for the situation? And I'll do a quick break there because another listener, Lynn's asked, how does one know when persistence is needed versus not the right path to continue down? So I feel like those are somewhat similar, but over to you on how you approach those.
So, yeah, I love Bobby Sue.
Absolutely.
She's amazing. So, in example of when perseverance helped me, so personal anecdote, there was about an 11-month period. I'm in my mid-20s, going through life. This whole part about what you said, how the future's uncertain. So, within an 11-month period, my mom passes away unexpectedly. My dad dies. I call off my first engagement. I defend my dissertation. And I have to move out of state for internship. So I thought I was familiar with Churchill's quote, if you're going through hell, keep going. So you do, you go. This is graduate school. You can take a break, but it's hard to do. And once I had time to settle and reflect, I thought, man, if I can get through that, I can get through just about anything. So being able to draw on that experience really, really helps me when I'm facing other struggles and challenges. So that would be an example of when it helped me. An example of when it hurt me, because knowing when to no longer pursue a goal is really important too. And you have to feel comfortable sometimes stepping away. So for me, an example of that was when a work situation, and I'm sure everybody can feel the familiarity in this. Staffing was an issue, understaffed, so more work is being asked of you. And sure, I'm a team player, I'll dive in, I'll do it, thinking it'll be temporary. Time goes on, it's not temporary, starts to wear. So longer hours, more stress, less sleep, no time for exercise, just got to be too much. And I thought, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to be no good to anyone. So I was able to speak with the administration, figure out a way to divvy up the tasks to several of us so we could all keep our head above water until they were able to hire more folks. So that was an example where it helped for a while, but had I continued going and not said something, it would have been not good for me. So that's an example where it was okay to step up and say, this needs to change. And from Lentz, I would say if you're going down a path and you're noticing that your emotional health, your physical health, things are really being impacted negatively, or you're questioning if this is really the right thing, you need to really ask yourself if the view is worth the climb, if this is something that you should still do. And sometimes you have to rely on other people that give you feedback because you may not see it.
The way I view it is when it comes to making decisions, and that can be on the front end of a journey, and then you begin that journey and you're wanting to persevere and stick it out because there is a goal or a task that you need to accomplish, and there's going to be a lot of difficulty, and it's going to challenge you, like you said, maybe emotionally, mentally, physically, all of the above. I think when all of the above are challenged, that really is tapping into perseverance at its core. It's not maybe just one facet, but it's all of us is being expended into this effort. And when you're making
Right.
decisions to either start or continue those, I feel like just who we have maybe at the table of our decision making, there's only so many chairs that you should probably have there to start with. And who you invite into that space is maybe one of the most important things. Whoever your trusted counsel that you would go to really share your heart and really listen to their insight and discernment. I think that's really, really important to help us navigate those things because we will have blind spots because of our own biases or just exposure, experience, or lack thereof. So having trusted people that are much different with different perspectives is so healthy.
Absolutely. We need the support, we need the confidence, we need the humor, all of those things. And I guess before I realized I did not answer Bobby Sue's point about dialing it in and values. So that's my North Star. I think it is for a lot of us. And If it's consistent with my values, I'm moving towards it. That's great. I stay on target. If it's not, it's time to dial it back.
Okay, next one from Jeanette. In your experience, would you conclude that perspective has a direct impact on a spirit of perseverance?
So this was a really thoughtful question. And in my experience, yes, I think it has a direct impact. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but how we perceive challenges definitely influences our ability to persist and persevere through them. So again, that the growth mindset of sticking with something, learning new things, viewing difficulties as opportunities. If you have that perspective, you're going to be able to persevere when things get difficult. In contrast, having a negative or fixed mindset is not going to do you any good when you have obstacles. The other thing that occurs to me that I think is really important is this idea of locus of control. And a lot of people may be familiar with it, but the degree to which you have any influence over your life makes a difference with whether you're going to stick with something. So if I'm
Right.
feeling like I have a lot of control over my life, I'm more likely to be engaged and 100% in on working through challenges. If I feel like it's just a crapshoot and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, I have no role in it. So an external locus of control, I'm probably going to give up because I'm going to feel like I have no efficacy in what I'm doing. So those were a couple of thoughts that came to my mind.
So perspective is needed, but I think also when it comes to a community that's going to help you through as you persevere, which I think is very helpful, I really believe there needs to be a shared value system, or maybe you coin that as a worldview, or just the general way that they approach things. That can't really be too divergent. So experiences, yes, should be divergent. But core beliefs and values, if you are truly going to persevere, you probably need a team around you that shares those pretty deeply. That's just my
100%
opinion
agree.
on the fact.
No, totally agree.
Final one from Justin that we will go over tonight says, how can individuals recognize when perseverance becomes detrimental to their mental health? And what psychological traits or strategies differentiate those who push through adversity from those who give up, especially in moments of doubt? I'll let you sit with that as long as you want, because that is a great, heavy question. Over to you. I'm glad you have this, not me.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And some people may think, well, it's really easy to know when you're not doing well while you're persevering through a task. But I think it can be difficult. Me personally, I almost need to be hit in the head with a 2x4 to say, oh, wait a minute, is this really good for you? Is this what you want to be doing? Because we'll put our noses to the grindstone and just go and churn because there's a bigger purpose or a bigger team or your boss or someone asks you to do this. And so I think it can be difficult to know when it's starting to be detrimental. And I suspect that most of the time, those closest to you will be the ones that notice it first. So those that are around you may point out, ooh, you're a little irritable, you're not sleeping well. And then you can start to take stock and say, oh, what is going on? So big, serious concerns would be persistent mood changes, appetite, sleep, not being able to focus, things like that. Also, if you find that you're not interested or enjoying what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish in the long run, by sticking with it, if you're not excited about your goal anymore, that should be sort of a little bit of talked about blind spots. And there's that joke, blind spot, what blind spots? I don't have any blind spots. So having others kind of point it out oftentimes is needed. And then checking in. You can even check in with friends and family. Are you noticing anything? Noticing anything? Are you concerned about anything? So checking in with others and then even checking in with yourself. It's not a bad idea to schedule those every so often to say, oh, where am I? Again, values. Is this still consistent with what I want to do? And at what cost? And I think that those things can be really helpful.
It's really important that we show some discernment and get some really good insight from people that we trust. And then just know, is this a purpose and a vision that actually aligns to who I believe I'm supposed to be, my core identity, that's going to drive these actions? Because the feelings may come and go. I agree with you that we want to be able to find enjoyment and fulfillment in what we're doing. So those feelings are useful to an extent, but also feelings, I don't want that to drive me in the face of a hard
Mm.
time, because it's not always going to feel pretty. Quite often it's not. So that commitment and perseverance is going to demand so much more than a good feeling about it.
I agree. And adding on to that, for that second part of that question, again, that growth mindset, the internal locus of control, those traits we know help people persist. Doubts to be expected. That's a natural, normal part, I think, of pursuing goals. So not to scare people off when that happens. And the other thing, and some people may not like this term, they feel it's overused. I love it. Grit. And Angela Duckworth, all her work on that passion and perseverance for long-term meaningful goals. People have grit. There's been research, they more than even intelligence and talent, it predicts success. So I feel like that's a huge part of it as well. And it's just a cool word.
We don't have hope in things that we can see right now. And that is such to me, a beautiful image of what a perseverant person has. They have hope that there will be success at the end of this difficulty. So that's just how I view it. The soil that you plant your tree in is going to be some suffering and pain. It's going to happen. And that tree of perseverance is going to bear some fruit, and that's going to be some character. That's going to be some really good virtues that you and other people can taste of. And when you can taste of that character that you've grown and produced, it offers you and others, as you look back on that situation, it offers a lot of hope to those that are going through similar situations. So I think there's a lot of health in sharing your story at the right time. Don't be morbid. Don't always go into these deep stories of perseverance, but there's such a beautiful thing in sharing what your story is and listening to others' story, because you can really offer an exchange of hope to each other that might be exactly what someone needs to get through something really difficult. Over to you, my friend. I'm so thankful you're here, and then I'll close this out.
I'm very honored that you asked me to do this, and I'm so thankful that we're friends. And I learn from
Me
you, I
too.
think, every time we interact. So I really appreciate that.
For the listeners, whoever you are, I'm so grateful you're here. But there are 4 people in my life that this matters most for, to leave as we talk about a memorial of who we are and why we do things and our purpose that drives us. And for me, that's my family. So for Laura and Aria and Alessia and Karina, whether you listen to this now or years in the future, I hope you live long, beautiful lives. Question for you. Guess what? Your dad loves you. And for all of our listeners, we're so glad you're here. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my deepest reflections and most personal stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.